This episode is about minutes 136 through 140 of The Rise of Skywalker with returning guest Dennis Hamm. Hello there, and welcome to Star Wars Music Minute, where we celebrate the music and sound of Star Wars 5 cinematic minutes at a time. I'm Chrysanthi Tan, feel free to call me Xanthi, and we are fully in the end credits during minutes 136 through 140 of Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. In order, we get the Imperial March, Rey's theme, Victory or the Rise of Skywalker theme, and the main Star Wars title music. Today's guest is Dennis Hamm, an incredible jazz pianist and harmony nerd who plays with Thundercat and tons of other artists. I'm so happy you're back on the show and we get to talk about Star Wars again. Welcome.
It's great to be back. Thanks for having me.
We both recently went to the Star Wars in Concert show at the LA Phil and had so much. There was so much that we needed to talk about, to debrief about that. And these end credits actually provide a unique opportunity as we get to, hear a lot of themes both from this movie and from the original trilogy. So we kind of get, like a review of greatest hits of some of the Star Wars.
Yeah, it was a great show with all the music from all the films, and we have a lot of thoughts about it. Yeah.
So I'll start playing from these minutes, and then we'll talk about. Well, it's the Imperial March, so we'll just hear it just to to warm up our ears or something. So much Imperial March. And then it's going to go directly into Rey's theme. I have to say, when we watched that show at that, the codetta, I was just looking at the violin section like, oh, goodness.
They're working.
Yeah. So I had Frank Lehman on for last episode, and we were talking about, I asked him, why do you think the Imperial March is in these end credits when this piece of music doesn't feature very heavily in the movie? And especially we hear it after Anthem of Evil. And he sort of made a case for this being not just end credits for episode 9, but sort of like it's capping the whole saga. And so I guess from that point of view, that makes sense. I will say personally, I think I'm a little disappointed that so much of the end credits is like Imperial March, when I do actually want to hear more of the new music at the end. What are your thoughts on the end credit suite, even the parts that came before this?
I think Frank's right there about it capping, putting a little bow on the end of the whole series. I personally love that music. More than the newer episodes, or the later episodes. It probably is brought just to what Frank was saying, though. I was listening with the more critical ears, like thinking about coming on this podcast with you, about the new music and how my criticism of the new music was. Aside from episode 4, 5, and 6, that it didn't have the same kind of harmonic elements and features. But I found a lot of them, actually, like some trademark John Williams stuff. And they're just, I don't know, maybe I'm just less familiar with the melodies, and I was exposed to the first three films in the early 80s in my formative years, and so it's like ingrained as being the most powerful, wonderful music. But anyway, so I'm trying to not be so biased.
Right. Are you saying that upon further study, you actually did find a lot of trademark John Williams harmony in this film?
Yes, in the harmony. And so then that led me to think, okay, well, maybe I'm just less familiar with the melodies, and so they're less impactful. But I don't know. Well, we can get into like specifically what little harmonic features he's doing. And
I do actually.
Interesting to get your take.
Yeah, no, I think we should just dive right into it, because a lot of what you're paying attention to is harmony. And so one of the things you said after Star Wars in Concert, which in Star Wars in Concert, it's a show where we hear music from all 9 of the films. And so it's a kind of a really good opportunity to compare and contrast just within a 2-hour span. And you had said that the differences between the original trilogy and 1 through 3 and 7 and 9 were just really striking. And I agree that stood out to me as well. But then you also said you had a bunch of harmony analysis of the Imperial March, and then you said something interesting, which was diatonic criticism of the later film's music. And I'm curious what you mean by that, and I'm also curious what is so good or interesting or John Williams-y about the harmony in 4 through 6. Big questions.
Well, yeah, if we by diatonic I mean major scale, minor scale, which is really common in more modern cinematic music, and not to borrow from and do like more modal interchange and like borrowing from from other modes.
So what you're saying is like it's the criticism is just staying within like major or minor. It's just kind of basic.
It's more basic. He stepped outside the bounds of those more, I think. I mean, the Imperial March is a great illustration because he goes from like the 1 minor chord to like the flat 5 minor chord and then the flat 6 minor chord. So
yeah. And
those don't fit in the tonic like major or minor. They're really out. It's a big departure. Tonally, it's a big departure from the key center. So that I think that kind of stuff happened a lot more often in films 4 through 6.
Can you actually demonstrate the chords that you're talking about?
Yeah. So if you play in the key of C. That's C minor and A flat minor, and so if you include all of the notes from both of those chords, it gives you a harmonic minor scale. So. And that's one of the darkest modes that you'd hear. It's not a diatonic mode because it doesn't fit nicely in the major or minor diatonic scales, but because you're just changing it's the 1 chord is minor, the 4 chord is minor, and the 5 chord is major. So it's C minor, F minor, G major. So and that works with both of those chords. You can the A flat minor chord is kind of this little extension of the 5 chord. And man, you know what? Should I share my screen? Because I'm actually pulling up the chords and what I'm playing on my screen.
Yeah, sure.
That'd be cool.
You should now be seeing a visual on screen if you're watching this on YouTube. And when Dennis plays, chord symbols will pop up And he'll explain later how that is happening. But yes, how do we find what triads, what chords are in a diatonic scale, a minor key?
So if we're in a minor key, you were saying like we have the one chord is minor, the two chord diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, and then minor. Or you can just take the notes of the one chord, the 5 chord, and the 4 chord, and the 3 notes of each of those chords all played at the same time gives you the whole scale.
Oh, I don't think I ever put that together. Cool.
So if you want to make it a harmonic minor scale like John Williams uses in the Imperial March, you just make the 5 chord into a major chord. Mm-hmm. So then we have the harmonic minor scale, and that works with
Yeah, and if you're doing like so the C minor would be a 1, and the A flat minor would be what minor 6? Sorry.
Yeah, the flat 6.
Flat 6. Mm-hmm. Now I have a crackle in my keyboard. Great. If you were doing not a flat 6, it would just be like what? Like
just be major.
What was that?
If you're doing you could either play A minor, or you could play the flat 6 with a major chord too. So that in the scale you have A flat minor or A flat major.
Right, mm-hmm. Which would be like a more diatonic, which would be a diatonic way of doing the Imperial March.
And John Williams does that on kind of near the end of that theme, because he goes. There's a F diminished as well too, and then he goes. F sharp minor, A flat minor again, and then he goes. He does a big A flat major.
Yeah,
right before
that's
the very
right.
end. Yeah.
Yep.
So you hear this bright sound. We're used to hearing A flat minor, but then now we hear this A flat bright sound before he goes back to F sharp minor and A flat minor. But that F sharp minor doesn't fit in the key of C minor.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I've been looking at what scale how we might be perceiving this from the key of C by playing it all at the same time with the C. And that's your chord. If you put an F sharp minor chord and a C minor chord together, that's
an interesting practice. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what you're doing, just for listeners, if you're having trouble understanding that, basically, if playing the Imperial March in the key of C minor, Dennis is just holding down the note C to see how all these chords fit in relationship to the C, and it turns out it sounds pretty discordant when you put them all together.
So, yeah. It's just kind of interesting to think that, a flat 9, which is like a flat 2,
right,
is in there, and a flat 5.
Yeah.
Which gets kind of this diminished C diminished thing. The flat 5 is that F sharp.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we could call it G flat instead of F sharp.
Right, instead of F sharp.
But, you know.
And it,
when,
not to mention it's like a tritone.
It's a tritone. But I think in this case, what's really interesting is if I were to play E flat minor, and then I were to play E flat minor 6, and then I put C in the bass, that's C minor 7 flat 5, or C diminished with that flat 7 too. So that means that this tritone, or that in the context of minor, of C minor, the tritone kind of feels like this E flat minor thing. So it's almost like E flat minor on top of C minor.
Yeah.
So it's doubly dark, doubly minor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting how stacking the chords in different ways can make it sound completely different. Yeah, and I'm thinking about like doing harmonic analysis, and I remember in school always being confused, like if I could spell this in multiple ways, how do I know which one to do? Sometimes like it would be confusing, but yeah, just even as you're playing that, just seeing the chord symbols just continually change is interesting. I think what comes next in the end credits is Ray's theme, and I think that's like a huge contrast to the Imperial March. And I kind of want to do the same experiment where you play the note, the key that it's in, you play the root, and then the other chords, and see how that sounds, if it's as discordant or not. So let's just hear Ray's theme. Okay, it's modulating. So
That's just straight D minor, right? Mm-hmm. Forget how the rest of it.
yeah, and then there's the part. I mean, I think Ray's theme is like aggressively diatonic.
Aggressively diatonic, yeah. Yeah, very different. Well, I mean, it's not supposed to be so eerie and dark,
Right.
as the Imperial March.
Yeah, but I mean,
So, but it doesn't have diminished. It doesn't have. Doesn't have that sound. It's just this minor.
does Leia's theme?
I don't think so. How does it? What's the melody? Oh yeah. So that's a really interesting. It has the minor 4 and
Right.
the major 1 and the major 1. That's the main difference there. Yeah. But,
And Han and Leia kind of has that too.
oh yeah, that's the.
Starts with a major 6th also, melodically.
Oh. Oh yeah. I'll do it in.
Something like that, yeah. Yeah.
So the minor 4 in a major key is John Williams. It's also the Beatles, but it's it's the 60s, 70s, and 80s of pop and film music. And then John brought in...
It's also classical love themes.
It is. No, you're right. But in what, romantic era, right? Yeah, romantic. Yeah. Debussy.
Sure, I'm thinking like Tchaikovsky.
Oh, of course. Yeah, like Nutcracker theme.
And like Romeo and Juliet.
And Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. Waltz of the Flowers, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, Luke and Leia, right. You said that's like your favorite John Williams composition. And we actually, this was probably like 7 to 10 minutes ago in the film. Where we do hear that in The Rise of Skywalker, which is really, it's really interesting. We hear it during the celebration on Agen Kloss when Janna and Lando are talking, and Lando is like, I don't know, want me to help you figure out where you came from, basically. Tell me why you like this theme.
It has all of his secret sauce in the song. It's got all
What's his secret sauce?
It's all of his harmonic tricks that make you like. Well, I was about to mention the how was it Han and Leia? Or is that Leia? That's Han and Leia.
That's
right?
Han and Leia. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that D flat over C, that's the flat 2 chord. That's I was saying what John Williams borrowed from some romantic composers too, but that's one of his trademarks, right? And then he also will do that flat 2 over the 5. That's super common too, like in Yoda. D flat over G. I think that's one of the most beautiful things too. And by the way, John, in watching his documentary recently on Disney, when asked what is he most proud of, or what of all the music he's written, he said Yoda's theme. It's probably got close to being the best thing that he's produced. Yeah.
Wow. I haven't watched it yet.
It is.
I need to see it. I know.
Yeah, you
I've been a little bit
do.
scared to watch it.
But that sound, it creeps up in the new. That's one of the features that creeps up in the newer films as well.
Which part of it exactly?
The flat 2
over a 5
chord over the 5 or over the 1. Yeah.
Interesting. What effect do you think that has?
Well, you did my little emotional, like harmonic emotional assessment test beforehand, and we can talk about that too. But I think there are 3 scale degrees, whether you're in major or minor context, that convey this sense of like mystery and adventure and the unknown and supernatural, and and those are the flat 2 and the flat 5 and the flat 6. So if I were to play the flat 2 with a 1 major chord, kind of sounds like that. Here's the flat 5 or the sharp 4, and then here's the flat 6. So they're all kind of this mysterious sound, right? One of them sounds a little more enchanting. This is a little more, I don't know, it's a little slightly darker, and then we have the darkest one. Right? Okay, so there's that element of adding that sound to a major key. But we also have this element. If you add a major 7 to the tonic. This is like John Lennon. Something in the way she moves, right?
Yeah.
And it conveys this yearning and longing, and so what if we keep the tonic note C, and we change the chord to that flat 2, and we keep that tonic in the melody at the top? That creates a major 7 sound. So it's this yearning and longing on the flat 2 chord. So I think you're adding the mysteriousness of that sound, and then we're also adding the yearning and longing feeling. So it's like mystery and yearning. So it's perfect for his space romance themes.
Yeah.
Basically.
Also, I'll note that like in his catalog, he has a couple mystery themes. Like we hear like the music when we arrive on Camino in Attack of the Clones. It's like and then it's like, and then there's another form of it. So what that one is that's, doing the flat 2. And then the other form of it which is doing the flat 6. So it's doing 2 of the 3.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's also X-Files and Stranger Things.
Oh, yeah.
All the mysterious supernatural stuff.
Also, I just watched Baby Girl, and I think there was a lot of... It may have been... I can't remember if it was a flat 2 or a flat 6. Like, I mixed them up I'm mixing them up in my memory, even. They just had, like... I can't remember if it was that or if it was... But, yeah, there was some mystery flat 6 or flat 2 happening in that, for sure.
And then if you add the flat 5, that's our diminished sound, and so that's more mysterious evil. And I think that's what you chose on that assessment test too. You said that the flat 5 sounded evil.
Yeah, I'm probably thinking of Kylo Ren. Yeah. Can you explain what the test is that we're talking about?
Well, I'm working on this project. We talked about it a lot. Some I was still developing it when I was first a guest on your podcast. It's basically every scale degree from a major or a minor context has a specific emotional feeling, and they seem to be common feelings amongst most listeners. We've been conditioned by the music we were exposed to, and a lot of John Williams in our childhood probably contributed to that. But so this test basically takes you through all 24. So it takes you through all 12 chromatic scale degrees, along with a major chord, and then it takes you through all 12 along with a minor chord. And so you end up with 24 different emotional terms, descriptions for how these notes make you feel when you add them to major or minor chords or contexts. And it does well to kind of explain how John Williams' music and a lot of music works emotionally.
Yeah. So I took the test this morning. So it was like... I don't know who is able to take the test or not, but as someone taking the test, it only took like 5-10 minutes. I basically clicked to hear audio examples, and then I selected like the word that I thought best fit the mood of what I was hearing. So, and then I emailed my results to Dennis, so he knows what words I picked for the different things.
Yeah, there's about 32 people who've done the test so far, and about 90% are answering very similar
cool
terms. So, and amongst musicians, about half of them are musicians, and they're closer to 97% kind of picking similar terms.
Weird. That's interesting.
Isn't that crazy? Not the exact same terms. About 50% are picking the exact same terms, but about 97 are picking closer related terms.
I wonder why I wonder why musicians are doing that. I wonder if it's because of... No, I just have so many questions about that. That's fascinating. Because musicians are listeners too, and we're asked to be listeners when taking this test. So I don't know what would be impacting that exactly.
I was surprised that 90% of non-musicians, about 89-90%, are picking very similar terms to the musicians as well, which is pretty close too. So
yeah,
there's not that much discrepancy, but yeah, I think musicians are aware of functional uses of these emotional tools. Even if we don't normally speak about music theory in these terms, we kind of intuitively know what to do.
Yeah, that's true. And I also think that there's like just some amount of programming from just the way we've learned either how to compose or how to pick, on an assignment, like what would be the next appropriate chord here to, I don't know, end with something mysterious or tension. And, they're trying to push you to do a deceptive cadence, or they're trying to push you to do like an authentic cadence or something based on like anticipation and release.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then anticipation in this study is showing the dominant chord, like a 7 chord. Feels
play
like
that?
Anticipatory. Yeah, like it wants to go somewhere, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the shave and a haircut.
Nice.
Okay. I think I'll just continue playing. I think that I think French horn walk down is purely meant. I think it's purely modulation purposes there. But then I think the key that they land on almost still feels like a jump to me.
They land
because
on
we're
G,
in
right?
E
And they were in E flat minor.
And then it goes like. To G major.
Interesting.
It's an interesting choice. Interesting choices there.
I've been thinking a lot about Neo-Riemannian, if I'm saying
I have
right.
too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So what you learn with that is that like E flat, like a relative or a leading tone voice leading would take you to that, right? You can go E flat major, you change one note, and take the E flat down to D, and that gives you a G minor. So I've been thinking about chord changes from like, he went from E flat minor to G major, and I've been thinking about what has to happen for that to be, how many moves would it take in the Neo-Riemannian voice leading to get there? And we would have to go E flat minor to E flat major to G minor to G major. There you go.
Can you explain?
Nice.
Can you explain what we're talking about?
So you have this reacting thing, right? Can you just play an E flat minor chord?
Yep.
And then change it to major?
Which would be a parallel transformation.
There you go, parallel. And then change the E flat note to a D, so you're playing a G minor in second inversion.
Yep.
There you go. So what was that move? That's
That was R,
that's
I think.
leading tone.
Relative. Oh, wait, no. Yeah, leading tone.
It's an L, yeah. And then
that's two
you change
moves.
that parallel as well to G major instead of G minor.
Yeah. So 3 moves.
3 moves, and I like to think about these emotionally. So because the E flat minor turned into this, from this dark thing to this bright thing, and then that just has kind of a leading tone move, which is kind of it's almost like E flat major 7. If I play G minor over E flat, that's E flat major 7. So it's still kind of an E flat world, right? E flat major world, and then. But it's also G minor, so it's like a substitution for E flat major 7. And then that G minor becomes G major. So we have bright, relative or leading tone, and then bright again. So that means the move from E flat minor is especially bright. It's brighter than if you just go E flat minor to E flat major. That's a bright move. That's extraordinarily bright because of those. Yeah. But we can track them by those parallel moves in the Neo-Riemannian analysis there.
Yeah.
The parallel moves being like minor to major, minor to major.
Yep. So the Neo-Riemannian analysis, or like thing that we're doing, this grid that you see on screen, the tonettes, it's a way to visualize triads, and by moves in this framework, you move only one note at a time. So that's why it's not just like you can't physically get from one chord to another with one move. Sometimes you make smaller increments, and the increments, they can be either a parallel move, which is parallel is just changing something from major to minor or minor to major. And you can see, like, visually, it kind of looks like the triangle is like flipping on its base. So yeah, minor, major, minor, major. The other kind of move you can make is relative. And so this is C major. The relative minor would be A minor. So you can see, how they're related. And because you're only changing one note at a time, the next triad is always, it's going to touch. And then there's the leading tone one, which is, the leading tone is scale degree 7 in a scale. So in C, the leading tone is B. So you're changing the tonic, the root, the tonic, that's what it's called, to its leading tone. So C goes to B. So you can stack,
which gives you that E minor chord, yeah. And it's interesting that when you play that C to A minor, you see how it's also the C over A thing. So, or I can call it C6. That's A minor 7. Or if I leave out the 5th, it's still just kind of like a C6. So that's why I say that those leading tone or those relative moves are substitutions, because they're so similar that they can almost be substituted for the other chord. And if you're composing music, you can use the substitution instead under your melody, and it'll just be another way to hear the same kind of feeling. Yeah.
There's a lot of times when I'm listening to like pop music, I guess it probably in like, I don't know, rock music, where I'm like perceiving something as like a C, but then I'm listening closer and it's like, it's actually A minor 7. That kind of thing happens all the time, which is why like almost gotta sometimes just regard them as the same chord functionally, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was talking about when I think of E flat minor as just being C, kind of like C diminished. Can you play that with the tonettes? Can you play C diminished and then play E flat minor?
C diminished, E flat minor.
Yeah, so just that one note moves. The C moves to
guess.
C moves to A sharp, but it's B flat.
Wait.
No, you had it. But it's called A sharp on that screen, but it's a B flat.
Right.
So it's just E flat minor 6, which is the same as C diminished.
Right.
So that's why, Oh, and then if we take E flat minor and we make E flat minor diminished, look at that, that's the same as F sharp minor.
Yeah.
It's F sharp minor 6, and that's where John Williams got our C minor to the F sharp minor in the Imperial March. It's basically F sharp minor is kind of like E flat diminished, which is kind of like E flat minor, which is kind of like C minor. So those are the moves, right?
Yeah, would you call that a relative diminished?
Maybe. That might be relative diminished.
Now I'm curious what you think of the Anthem of Evil theme, the Psalm of the Sith. Let's see, I'm putting it on. We heard that in earlier in the end credits.
Oh, yeah.
The first part is all that we hear in the film. We don't hear the second part of the film, except in a little bit of the end credits. But this first part is in all over the film.
Yeah, there's our diminished kind of sound with that over the C minor.
Right.
And then B minor over C.
I don't think. Yeah, I guess so. I'm not sure that's right.
It's also kind of like a diminished. C diminished major 9 would be the chord if you play both of them at the same time. Still in that dark flat 5 realm. And then we have he's got that A flat minor again, just like in the Imperial March, from C minor to A flat minor. And so that's just harmonic minor scale with the A flat minor and a G major, all in the C minor context. Yeah. It's not jumping around as much though, right? It's as the Imperial March, but it's got the same evil harmony.
Yeah, he called the A part a bargain basement Imperial March.
Bargain basement.
Yeah, I think he likes it, but it was he thinks it's just clearly not as good as the Imperial March. But then the B part he really does like, and so it's a little sad that it's not featured in the movie. Yeah. It's pretty funny, though.
And the B part, is that in the key center of E flat minor or C? It's still C, right?
I think it's in the key center of E flat minor, but also I wonder if I should just play it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me do that. Okay. Because it went by so quickly last episode. Okay, let's see. Where is this? Looking in my notes. Psalm of the Sith, B section is about. Okay, it's actually after this. This is the A section. Okay, wait, actually, I'm remembering that it was actually cut out of the end credits, but it is in the finale track. That's what it is. Okay, so now I'm skipping into the finale track. Goodness. The amount of cuts. Here. Pretty cool.
Feels like it does a lot of modulation, right?
Yeah. I wonder why it was cut, but it's definitely
Only in
crunchier.
end credits. Wow.
And it's actually not in the end credits in the film. It's only on the soundtrack in the end credits, like
Oh my
in the
goodness.
finale track.
It's not
Yeah.
diatonic enough. For these newer audiences.
Can't handle. It's funny.
Too much modulation.
Well, now I'm curious. Okay, the next part in the end credits in our set of minutes is the victory theme. So I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on that. So let's continue with that. Let's see. It's about two. Oh yeah, we ended up with that kind of strange modulation to G major.
Okay, you can pause that because that's
Yes.
where he does the same thing he does in Yoda and all the other things with the flat 2 chord over the 5. So he does. So it's the major 1 to the minor 4. And then I get it goes to E flat at one point. And then we go to with D in the bass. So E flat is the flat 6, which is a what is that, a relative move from C minor. So the C minor is the 4 chord, we do a relative move to the flat 6, and then if you play the 4 chord in E flat major, we get to, that's the 2 chord, the flat 2 chord in G major. So there's
Right.
right. So and then he puts that big 5 in the bass, and you remember that from. You want to play it one more time from maybe from the same spot and just stop it
Yeah.
when you get to the A flat chord. Right there. So that's so that's just Yoda. Yeah, Yoda does that. exact move.
Did you watch the Obi-Wan Kenobi show?
Melodically. Yeah.
Does he do it in the Obi-Wan?
Oh, I don't remember.
That's...
There it is. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause that... Yeah.
He also does that in what is it? Oh,
right.
That's the flat
right.
2 over, and then yeah. I do that as a jazz piano player. I use that chord all the time when if I'm in C. I'll play D flat over G because I'm often playing like this G7 alt, which resolves nicely to C major. But in that G7 alt scale is a D flat major chord. So I think John Williams' time spent as a jazz pianist is where he was really influenced by some of these sounds. Possible.
Yeah. I'm specifically, I just feel like it is in so much of his music now. It's everywhere. Yeah.
It's everywhere. That's probably the most common John Williams trademark harmonic trick.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes evaluating, or when other Star Wars composers, score a show or another film or something, sometimes there is a bit of an assessment that many of us are doing of how John Williams does this sound. Does it sound really different? Does it sound like it's trying to be different? Does it sound like it's trying to be the same, but it's not hitting the mark? And why is that? And I think it would be actually cool to have, I want to know what more of the trademarks that you identify are, because now I feel like having certain, like a checklist of did it do this? Did it do that? There are certain orchestration ones too. They're not all harmony related, but like having inner woodwinds do a fast thing or but harmonically, this list fascinates me.
Yeah, the Lydian thing is big too, and you can hear that throughout. Yoda, and then and all the other films he does too. So Jurassic Park and
I feel like the Lydian one is easily. I feel like a lot of composers who are doing Star Wars do the Lydian thing. I feel like it's easy. It's a lower lift thing to imitate, or not imitate. It's not always imitation. It could just natively be what they feel like writing. But like in Skeleton Crew, the show, so Lydian throughout.
Yeah, it's E.T. That was another. Indiana Jones. It's all over the place. But
what are some other ones? So we have flat 2 over 5, or 1, or there's variations on that.
Yeah, it's the flat 2 over 1 or over 5, which, by the way, is also kind of Lydian.
Yeah. Okay.
If you play C and G, and then you play that D flat.
Okay.
G is that sharp 4. is the sharp 11.
Yeah,
So
it's true.
which
Yep.
is, yeah, kind of all that mysterious supernatural sound. What's another one he does? Well, let's see. That's flat 2. So there's alternate bass notes. He still has the 1 in the bass, even though he's playing the flat 2, and the melody is reinforcing this G flat chord. Let's see. He does. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, it's that tritone substitution type of thing. So in jazz theory method, we think of if you play a C7 chord, you can also just play a G flat 7 chord as a tritone substitution. So that's kind of what this is. So instead of playing C7 alt resolving to F major, I can play G flat 7 or 13 resolving to F major.
So basically, you're swapping.
So John Williams jazz language.
Right. So a tritone substitution, like you are swapping one, I guess, dominant 7th chord, or maybe just a chord with, a dominant 7th chord with another dominant 7th chord, a tritone away.
Exactly. And if you just play those 3 notes, C, E, and B flat with F sharp. And then that's also a G flat 7 chord.
Ah, yes. Okay, yeah.
And if I put G flat in the bass, that's also a G flat 7 sharp 11. So they're both sharp 11 chords. And sharp 11 is that Lydian sound too, by the way.
Right. Yeah. 'Cause that's
turn it into a dominant, and then we have that relationship to the flat 2 chord. So we have. There's also a famous jazz piece on Green Dolphin Street that goes. No doubt. I mean, it's pretty old jazz standard, and so I mean, I think Green Dolphin Street probably influenced John Williams his time playing jazz piano. He's got some great records out of him playing.
really.
Some trio. Yeah, there's some great. I think he was going by Johnny Williams at that point.
Yeah, is it listed like under could one find these on Spotify?
You can listen. Mm-hmm. Spotify or Apple Music. I found it a couple of them recently.
Okay, cool.
He's a brilliant piano player, like amazing piano player. But E flat to D flat. That's kind of what happens in Yoda. It's kind of the similar moves. Anyway.
Yeah. And then in
I'm
this
biased
victory
as a
theme,
jazz pianist too.
yeah. And then this victory theme is, well, first, what do you think of it?
Oh, yeah, I like it because of he pays homage to the classic John Williams moves, like that one move. That's the main reason why I enjoy it, but it's, I don't think it's melodically as powerful, but that could also, I'm trying to figure out if that's just my bias though, because I know I've learned I learned these melodies when I was 4 or 5, 6 years old. So
as powerful as something like Han and Leia, or is what you mean? Yeah. I think rhythmically, it's also perhaps not as interesting. I really like this theme, but yeah, it's probably my favorite from this movie, and it might be my favorite like new theme in the sequel trilogy. Although I think Rey's theme is also quite good, for it being so different than like Leia. Like it's something different. But yeah, here, at least when we first, like it's kind of a chorale. It's doing a chorale thing. It's like straight quarter notes, which isn't always, it's not always played with straight quarter notes. It's, but,
yeah. Oh, interesting. I wonder if he meant that to be A flat, because I think it's A flat over G. Maybe that section of he used A minor.
There also
that
might
section.
be a typo. I think there's a typo
That's
on
the most important chord. The one chord that I like in the whole thing.
Okay,
no,
wait.
but
Here,
that 4 minor chord too. He's using that. That's Princess Leia and
right.
stuff as well.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to throw
Minor,
another one
4
at you
minor
just because
in major.
I want your take on it. Is this friendship theme? I'll put it on screen.
Interesting. He calls that diminished. Interesting. That's, yeah.
It's just modulated.
It's a great way of using that. Here in A minor, that sounds like a lowered fifth.
Right.
But then he says, psych, that's the major, that was the major third of our
Right.
B major. And those types of flips are really emotionally powerful, and that's, I think, so yeah, that's one of the reasons why I really like this one more than others. That's a really effective use of like that bright to dark, typical John Williams thing. It's like modal interchange, but it's also the chromatic mediant thing, where if you're in G and then you go to B major. Essentially, how I explain that and how I understand that is, if you're in the key of B major and then you change to B minor, oops, and then I go to minor, within that natural minor, B natural minor scale is a G major chord. So if I'm coming from G and then I go to B major, my brain goes, oh, we were just in B minor before, because G works with B minor. And now we've changed to B major. So it feels like a lift for that reason. That's really effective. And then he does Lydian here, right? Which is... What is it? It's harder to read, sorry.
D minor, D sharp minor.
Which is such a gorgeous alternate bass note there. And the reason why, if I just stay...
To have it over the A sharp?
Yeah, I'm talking about the D sharp minor over A sharp. If I just stay on the E chord and I add an A sharp, that makes E sound like E Lydian. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's sharp 4. And what if I play the whole D sharp minor chord? That's E major 9 sharp 11. That's our Lydian sound. He starts the song or that section with this B 6 9 sharp 11. This is kind of the same kind of feeling. But then when you have this alternate bass note, it kind of draws attention to that note. It's a grounding pitch. It's that low pitch. And so I think that's another feature that Williams uses a lot is by using alternate bass notes or just the instrumentation and the voice leading to emphasize specific feelings. So if we say that sharp 4 feeling is kind of this enchanted Lydian feeling, another way to make you feel it stronger is to put that note in the bass.
Yeah.
So there's E over, it just draws more attention to it. So he's doing all of that. He's giving you Lydian. He's giving you that feeling by drawing attention to it, an alternate bass note. He's using all the tricks, so that's why I like this, because it's all of his little his little tricks in a few bars. Whereas the other piece, it had to go 16 bars before you find one of those trademark tricks.
You mean in the victory theme?
Yeah, exactly, the victory theme. And his early music from the first 3 films, from episode 4 through 6. So every measure is one of his trademark moves that just emotionally tugs you, like every single bar. So, but that takes a lot. That's a lot of inspiration and passion to like pull all of that in to make that melodically work and harmonically work. Like, yeah. So. Yeah.
Well, we are about to get to another classic, the most original, I don't know, theme, and would love to hear what you have to say about this main theme section, because it's doing different things. I'll stop there for now, but to what extent is this just a cut and dry tip fanfare? Like, are there Williams signatures in this to you?
The modal interchange stuff is all over it.
And where do you hear that?
This is in B flat for this version of it. The accompaniment is doing this kind of, the 5 chord is minor instead of major. Right? And then when he goes, or whatever, so it gives this perception of going from F minor to F major. And so that's one of those bright and dark flip, emotionally like powerful moments when you change from bright to dark or dark to bright between major and minor chords. And then he does That's that chromatic mediant thing again. That's so powerful because we go, so we're back in F minor here. Or we're in B flat minor, which is our tonic key, which is more of a Dorian. This is a Dorian scale. So regardless, if we're perceiving it in kind of coming from this F major world, D flat sounds like F minor. Or if we're still hearing this as the 5 chord in B flat major, then D flat sounds like B flat minor.
Right.
So either way, it's a minor, it's doubly dark, and then it resolves to major there. And then at the very end of it, that's B flat natural minor.
Yeah.
So that's, and then resolve to major. So
right.
anyway.
Okay, so another modal. So by modal interchange, are you mainly talking about swapping from major to minor, minor to major?
Yeah, the parallel moves in the tonnets, or the tonets. Yeah.
I've never.
Yeah.
The main theme is I find it one of the hardest pieces of his music to sit down and pay attention to, just because it's so ubiquitous. Like it's easy to take for granted, I think, because it just is what it is. I know it too well, but then I started doing these live table reads, these Star Wars live table reads, where I'm providing live musical accompaniment as a solo violinist. So my harmony options are limited to what chords I can play, and what chords I can evoke with faster notes, so within a shorter time frame. And I've continually been surprised when transcribing like music for myself to use, how surprising some of the choices are, and how not easy to just hear and play it accurate. Like there are just so many little gems all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another one is that A flat to F, and we could just think of that as F minor, F minor 7 to F7. But when you do it with strong shapes like that, it has a different feeling. But then I think a lot of more, recent composers, like for like the Marvel movies and stuff, that's the stuff they use all the time. What
would you call that?
I don't know. It's just some of those John Williams tricks that they've grabbed a couple of them and they just always use those.
Those same, yeah.
That's the chromatic mediant stuff.
Right.
But John does it. He did it in a way that's a lot more romantic in his melodic use of the voice leading, I think. So it
Can you explain chromatic mediant?
Chromatic mediant was that thing of like if you're playing B flat, I'll do it in C. If you're playing C, one chromatic mediant would be E major, because the third becomes
the third is called the mediant, by the way.
The mediant, yes. The third becomes the root of a new chord. So and then so it's chromatic because we had to change. We can't speak diatonically. Diatonically, it would be a leading tone mediant that goes to the median, but it's E minor. But it's chromatic mediant because we're making it E major. And the same thing if we want to turn that C into the major third of A flat. We do some chromatic moves. But I was just pointing out that particular chromatic mediant in that direction makes us feel like we're in the key of C minor now instead. If we don't feel like we've modulated, that just feels like we're borrowing from C minor. And by the way, if if we add that flat 2 chord that he loves to do, that's C Phrygian, which is an even darker minor, because it's here's minor, and then we flat the 2 as well. So I like to. It's nice to explain John Williams' harmony by these flips between major and minor scales, especially if you consider all the other scales like Phrygian and harmonic minor and even harmonic major, which is a scale that we all need to be talking about more, which is
can you play that?
That's it. So if you play all these songs that have like a 1 tonic, major tonic chord, and then the 4 minor chord, and then maybe the 5 minor chord too, that resolves to major, it's not necessarily putting us in C minor world just because we've played the 4 minor chord. We still are kind of resolved to major, and that's a very, that might even be one of those main Marvel themes too. Yeah. So it's just a common melodic major, and then harmonic major is the one from that's if we keep the 5 chord major and then the 4 chord minor and the 1 chord major.
So you think of it as framework wise a completely different scale rather than something that's borrowing. You're just like,
Yeah.
it's used so often that just recognize it and use it as its own scale.
Yeah, I think of the ghost notes, the residual notes in my head that are still there, that haven't necessarily changed to minor. I can still hear this, that major third, right? And actually, Williams uses that in.
Is that Night on Bald Mountain? You're just like.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
No, he goes. He keeps the major third in the melody as well.
Yeah.
That, even on the, yeah. So that's absolutely. It's absolutely a melodic major. People like to call that Lydian flat 6, but I think melodic major is more appropriate because it's F melodic minor. The relative melodic major to F melodic minor is C melodic major. It's the same exact notes.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah. It's a good way to explain why it should be named C melodic major.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But if you think of all of these, like Phrygian, minor, melodic major, harmonic major, natural minor, harmonic minor, from the C context or from your tonic context, then you can kind of understand that emotion, those emotional term tests that I had you do. They all will make sense. Those meanings carry throughout the piece if you have this tonic reference point. So yes, we can say we've modulated to, like in the Imperial March, we can say, oh, we're in key of A flat minor now, just temporarily for this chord. And there's a good G leading tone leading to A flat, which makes you feel that way. But it's probably better to just think of it in terms of C. what is that scale? We said that's harmonic minor. But anyway, so I'm approaching music, my whole concept of music theory from this emotional, like what does it mean to the tonic key, and major and minor-ness gives us our bright and dark feelings, and most things can be explained by those comparisons between majorness and minorness. And like I was explaining, even diminished chords are just doubly minor, and
What do you think of augmented chords?
They're kind of like minor. It's interesting because you'd think it would be more
Hyper major.
Extra major. But what does that A flat mean to a C key center?
It's true. It's getting
kind of
that
a
flat
dark
six.
feeling, right? Mm-hmm. It kind of belongs to that F minor. If, however, I put a B natural in this chord, okay, now that B kind of draws us to the E sound, right? Mm-hmm. Which means, though, if you're still thinking about C, what is C to E? C works as in E minor. So if I do add that B to that C augmented chord, and it puts us in this, E context now, but I still have this memory of C, or I'm still hearing C major. It's almost like I'm hearing E major and E minor at the same time. Or, so anyway, it's all related to major and minor perceptions. Like everything can be broken down to major and minor perceptions, which is the bright and the dark. And Star Wars is the perfect movie for all this music that I'm glad they made the movie so that we could experience John's music.
I have Oh no, continue. Then I have a question.
No, I think it's the best part about the films is the music. And I'm glad you do this podcast for that. Probably that's the reason, right? It's like yeah.
When you hear just like an open, just 1 and 5, without a third, you can't tell if it's major or minor, but do you have a bias toward interpreting this as major or minor?
Yeah, major for sure, because without any other context, major. And I think most Western, major minor tonality listeners are going to hear it that way too, because it's just more common to hear songs in major keys, and it's more common to hear major chords as well. If you look at the research that has added up all the chords and all the keys of most music, Western music, the major wins over minor.
Who did that?
Lots of people. But David Huron did some of that too, yeah. I think he added up 6,000 works.
Oh my gosh.
And found, or maybe that's how many times. Yeah, no, it's probably major keys were most prevalent in 6,000 works. And then, but if you go to other cultures, there are some cultures that don't have exposure to the internet or Western music, and like the northern tribes of Pakistan, where they report that minor chords are more positive and uplifting, and major chords are odd and strange. So yes, I am biased, as well as several billion people that are exposed to Western music.
Yeah.
And in the first 5 or 6 years of your life, that's when you form these emotional associations with major versus minor, happy versus sad. That's about how old you are when kids start reporting on these assessment tests that how music major and minor makes them feel. Before that age, it's not. They don't. really have those associations yet.
That's interesting. Now I'm curious if younger listeners would, other than like in the more complicated, some of the more complicated, I guess they're not necessarily complicated, but like in your test where you're doing like, or then you're like, or whatever, like doing I'm curious if kids would have association. I guess maybe they might not have the vocabulary to describe.
That's a tough part.
How that makes them feel. But then I'm also wondering, like, what kinds of media would they have been exposed to at a really young age to have hear the music that is like despair or evil. I guess evil is one that's, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I the first film I saw in theaters was Empire Strikes Back when I was 4 years old. And
wow.
So it's no coincidence that I'm so emotionally moved by John Williams' music too. In those formative years, those are the perfect years, 4 to 6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty young. Okay, we have more here. Okay, yeah, let's talk about that.
I was going to ask you, do you know, it's that, so it's, is it B flat major or B flat minor? So
I interpret it as major.
Yeah, I think so too. I was trying to hear it and I thought I heard that voice go. But maybe I didn't have the right headphones on, but. I hope it's major. I think it probably is major.
I think it's major.
And if you play all of these chords together, and you can even play G. So that's B flat major, upper minor third, D flat major, upper minor third, E major, upper minor third, G major. And then you play it all in the same. It's a B flat octatonic scale. Half step, whole step, half step, whole step. Mm-hmm. That has B flat major and B flat minor, D flat major and C sharp minor, mm-hmm. major, E minor, and G major and G minor. It's an awesome scale
That's
that has
so cool.
all of these chords, and he uses it and I use that scale all the time when I'm playing diminished and octatonic scales in jazz music. And I know that I can just grab those. It's just a common thing. I can arpeggiate those triads. I'll use it in.
Do you always keep a stable pedal point?
Well, if I'm thinking of it, like if I'm playing this C13 flat 9 chord, C, E flat, E, A, D flat. I know that works with the C octatonic scale. So I can rip on that scale if I'm improvising. I can also play those triads that fit within that scale. So that would be C major, E flat major, G flat major, and A major. And so then I can right? And yeah. So by the way, this is there's our flat 2. if we're treating this like a dominant, that has that flat 2 in there too. So it's
As someone
really interesting.
Okay, I have like multiple questions for you, but also just as someone who primarily deals as a player with, I don't know, melodic stuff, I think of it like the feature of the Rebel Fanfare that stands out to me is all of the planing notes. It's just like I can plug in my harmonizing pedal, make the first interval a major third up and the second one a perfect fifth up, and I can just play the Rebel Fanfare on a solo instrument and everything's planing, so I can just automate that basically. And then I just have a question for you, which is, do you practice a bunch of scales?
I do.
Okay. Like, and then when you're taking a solo, how much do you feel like you're mathematically having to calculate things? Having to like remind yourself like what notes are in, I don't know.
Anymore.
Not
when
anymore.
I'm learning
Okay.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
But going back to your observation about the planing, planing does a specific thing to our perceptions. So well, first of all, if you, one of the things we learn when we're learning jazz voicings, different spellings of chords, is that we can omit the fifth of the chord. So if I play a C7 chord, I don't have to play the G in the chord, and it's still called a C7 chord.
Yep.
Because the fifth it kind of just supports the root.
Yep.
And actually,
the one.
if you were to play, so also there's the natural overtone harmonic series that has those notes that you're hearing in the overtone series. When I strike a piano key, we're also hearing a C an octave above it. We're hearing another fifth above that, a G and a C, and then an E above that. And so our brains are fusing those notes, those audible frequencies together in our brains because we are familiar with the sound of a piano string. But there is an E. You're hearing an E. If you played it and you listen really closely, you'll hear a really high E right here. You can kind of hear it. So anyway, that fusion process, where we are familiar with the timbre of a piano note, is kind of what's happening when we hear planing, because you were playing those are just major triads: E flat, D flat major, E flat major. So you could condense all of those notes into just the root of those chords, because our brain is kind of saying, oh, well, that's just kind of supporting the root really, really well.
Right.
So you can just think of this as the root of each one and just play the melody. Right?
Yeah.
And by the way, that melodic phrase is kind of like the blues.
Yeah.
And the blues is basically diminished over major. So if I'm in C, right? But then he's doing it here. And then he does the planing, does a whole chord on top of it. And it just so happens that those full chords also fit in that octatonic diminished scale. It's a diminished scale starting with a half step, so that's why it's called octatonic. But it's just a diminished scale that fits with those diminished chords. Which is this dark sound. But
But it's heroic.
All that kind of ties in. Yeah, and it's also heroic because of the planing, right? Because it's like reinforces those melody notes. those roots of those chords. It has tons of reinforcement. Why is that also heroic, though? When I take a major, E major, to D flat major, or he starts with D flat major to B flat major. If we take D flat major to B flat major, what is that doing? That's taking essentially B flat minor 7 to B flat major. And what's more heroic than being lifted out of the darkness into the light? So all of this is that's dark B flat minor, and now it's B flat major with this C pedal, but which is just another layer of our perceptions, right? But so E is C sharp minor, which becomes D flat major, is B flat minor, which becomes B flat major. So minor, major, which is also minor, which is also major. So there's just everything can be kind of explained by these dark to bright things, including your use of the word heroic, which kind of is like triumph, right? It's like conquering evil.
I guess the end of Yoda's theme does this too, where it's like.
Oh yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, I've been meaning to transcribe that part and figure out what it's doing.
Let's see if Frank has a transcription.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is also planing there.
Oh yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, and while you're looking for that, I will demonstrate what John Williams did in the Olympic theme, the Olympic Fanfare.
Oh yeah.
Because he goes in C, then he goes down to B flat, and does B flat Lydian, which is some planing. He's just doing fifths and stuff, and then he goes to D flat Lydian, and then he goes to E Lydian, all over C, and then resolves to C again.
Wow, yeah.
But do you recognize those chords? That's he goes to B flat, then he goes to D flat, and then he goes to E.
Yeah, he's doing the Rebel.
He's doing the Rebel
Fanfare,
March
basically.
in the Rebel Fanfare in the Olympic theme. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, you got it.
Yeah.
Wow. So that A flat, F, D flat. Interesting. Yeah. The A flat to the F is definitely that same planing. And it's also that same move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you think of A flat as F minor,
Yep.
F is F major, D flat is F minor, and then B flat is back to F major, and then we have G, which could be kind of perceived as a lift, kind of like F Lydian. So if you think of it, all of that stuff from the perspective of F, it gives you minor, major, Lydian. Yeah.
It's interesting that it's tucked. Yeah, it's just tucked in there in Yoda's theme.
Mm-hmm. It'd be fun sometime to improvise and compose in the style of Williams with all these tricks and just do a whole set where we just play a bunch of John Williams style improv.
Please do that.
That'd be fun. We gotta
That
do
would
that.
be awesome. Yeah. My
Yeah.
goodness. I feel like,
We can write something.
wow, my mind, I'm just thinking about so many things. I guess let's finish off the last 30 seconds. Oops. Well, it's the end of the minutes, but I like when the main theme goes to that next section.
That climbing section. Yeah.
Gosh. There's always so much to talk about with Williams. What other, do you have a preference musically between episodes 7, 8, and 9? Or do you regard it kind of as one block?
Yeah, I guess I didn't pay attention enough to the music, and I don't know if I should fault myself or not for that. Yeah, so I do kind of think of it as one block, but
Fair.
you have more familiarity with it. So how do you experience it?
I think I'm partial to episode 9. Although I very much like the diegetic piece in episode 8. And then I'm curious, diegetic music, like when outside of score, when you're thinking of things like Cantina Band, how in John Williams's orchestral, how do the same rules apply? Or is John Williams doing a completely different thing? Let's just specifically talk about Cantina Band.
Yeah, that's... shoot, I have to get in that framework, but it's the jazz
Yeah, just to...
chords and frames. But, yeah, that just seems like a different world. I mean, we talked about how a lot of harmony is kind of taken from jazz, or jazz took this harmony from the same classical music that Williams is inspired by too. Yeah, that Cantina Band theme has these modulating, a lot of dominant chords that are moving, secondary dominance and stuff. So it feels like a lot of quick temporary modulations. But it's also just kind of this, I don't know. It seems like a different realm.
Yeah, fair enough.
The rest of it, right?
Yeah, that's fair. And have you paid attention to John Williams's more recent scores, like maybe the last 20 years, other than Star Wars? And do you notice these trends throughout?
Last 20, I mean, maybe if you go 30 years. If you include Jurassic Park. When was Jurassic Park?
I think Jurassic Park was 90s.
Yeah. So definitely 30 years. All the Indiana Jones stuff and Jurassic Park and what else?
Harry Potter.
Harry Potter has the tritone sub thing a lot. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those mysterious those scale degrees. And chromatic mediant stuff too. Yeah, that's a great example. The Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah. It's inspired for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't know if
you'll see in the documentary how it talks about how he lost his wife right kind of before composing the first Star Wars music.
A New Hope? All the way back then?
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So he had gone through some major heartbreak, and she passed away, and then he created the most beautiful music from that.
Yeah. Just thinking about like a lot of the things that you've talked about today. I mean, I especially in the like the Rebel Fanfare section of the stuff we were talking about, where it's easy to see. There are a lot of perhaps jazz tricks. There are also a lot of, a classical person might call that borrowing from Holst or something like that. And I feel like it's pretty unique how he has kind of both worlds like in his head to draw from at the same time, because it could be both. And also classical composers have, draw from jazz too. But yeah, your perspective is interesting because you haven't once been like, and here he's doing like Stravinsky, here he's doing like, which is usually how my conversations go, which is usually like, okay, let's compare this to Tchaikovsky, Shostakovich. Yeah. Yeah.
And most of the jazz musicians that were creating jazz in the early 20th century were classically trained. So
okay.
They were all borrowing from classical stuff too when it was originating.
Is that still common now?
Well, now I don't know. Now what's common is we're borrowing from John Williams. He's the new classical jazz mashup.
That's funny. Yeah, that was funny. Is it common for jazz players, pianists, to be classically trained? I mean, I'm guessing at least to an extent.
Yeah, I don't know. To some extent, probably. I wasn't as much.
Fascinating.
But some of my favorite young jazz musicians come from that, though. And they can improvise in the style. They're improvising bagatelles and.
Oh.
I'll turn you on to a couple of. You're gonna
Please
be blown
do.
away.
I definitely want to hear them. Anyway, I'm gonna run down what themes we heard for the listeners. In this set of minutes, we have the Imperial March theme. We have the Imperial March vamp. We have Ray chimes, Ray A theme, Ray gallop, Victory, main theme A section, main theme B section, Rebel Fanfare, Martial rhythm, and the descending heroic tetrachords, which is the in the violins. Mm-hmm. The most important part of that track, obviously. And then in the soundtrack, you can hear this in Finale, which is track 19 on the OST. Dennis, is there anything else about Star Wars music, about the music of the sequel trilogy that you didn't get to speak about before we do the questionnaire? I will have you back on for Return of the Jedi as well, so it's okay if you forget. But anything else about Rise of Skywalker?
I don't have as much to say about obviously the the sequel music, but thanks for including me when we're with the recap of all of the music. So yeah.
Yeah. It was a perfect episode to have you on for. Plus, I think
Appreciate
last time you were on, several listeners were mind blown by you. Just like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Myself included, just because your ear is so good. Okay. Are you ready to answer the Star
Thanks.
Wars Music Minute questionnaire for the second time?
I'll do my best.
Okay. Okay. Question number 1. In exactly 3 words, what does Star Wars sound like?
Okay, I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna go to what you answered for the 3 most important scale degrees. Well, we got to pick whether it's major or minor. So,
Okay.
let's see. You said enigma in a major key. The minor 6th was enigma. I think that's really appropriate. I'm going to say adventure is a really appropriate word. And maybe magical, but that's kind of similar to enigma. But or epic, maybe that's a better one.
Enigma, adventure, epic. Your last, oh, this is funny. Last time you answered this, you said adventure, mysticism, and justice.
Ooh, yeah, that was a good too. Justice. Yep.
Yeah. Question number 2 is, what is something related to Star Wars music or sound that you want to learn more about?
I would love to talk to John Williams and hear more about all these things that I've been speculating, like where his head was at. Is he more in the jazz piano mindset, or like most people assume he's listening to the other composers? So I'd like to know more about where his head was at when he was thinking.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Do you feel that way more so after watching the documentary?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I fear that I have to be in a space where I can handle the yearning I might feel after the documentary, because I think I will just feel like a strong urge to want to talk to him myself and ask the questions that weren't even touched upon. Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't get to go that deep into the harmony, obviously. Like,
Yeah.
but
Last time you said, what specific classical composers did John Williams borrow from harmonically, and how specifically?
there we go.
So you're kind of thinking in the same realm. And then finally, what is a score or soundtrack that you're fond of besides anything Star Wars?
Yeah. So I have a playlist of my favorite Williams music in order of favorite. And
Really?
a lot of it comes from like E.T. E.T. might be one of my other favorites of his. Yeah, it's all those classic tricks, but in such a beautiful, like, melodic way.
Yeah,
and
E.T.
Indiana Jones too. There's some, and Jurassic Park. There's some of those, but I think E.T. is the most rich, like emotionally powerful harmony and melody.
Yeah. E.T. is one of those for me as well. Last time you said The Last Starfighter,
Yep, that's a great one.
which was one of your like earliest films that you saw, I think you mentioned.
I was young. Yeah.
Yeah. I still haven't seen it, but after that episode, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you got to see that. It's so good."
The music makes it good. It's not a great movie, but the music does make it good.
And which always helps. Sometimes
It
that
always
can
helps.
make all the difference for me. All right. Well, Dennis, where can people find your work online, or see what you're up to, see videos of you playing piano, whatever?
I'm often on the road playing music with Thundercat. We've had this trio with Stephen Bruner and Justin Brown, and myself for the last 10 years or more. And so we're often out playing his music, Thundercat's music, Steven's music. And then also I'm working on this emotion and harmony project called Sentisonics. Senti, like to feel, and then sonics, like audio. Sentisonics.com has that. It might look like a coming soon thing right now, but so keep a lookout for that.
Yeah.
It's a new kind of a new music theory method, kind of based on a lot of the stuff we were talking about today.
Yeah. It's cool.
Kind of.
I'm a beta tester.
John Williams, yeah. John Williams informed music theory method.
That's the secret subtitle. That's the secret.
Exactly.
That's funny. Oh, and I should mention Stephen Bruner, Thundercat, is the person in Book of Boba Fett. The mod person.
Modifier.
Yeah. And there's like a card,
Yep.
like a
He has playing
like a
card.
trading-
Yeah, the collector cards. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Really cool. And his music was actually used in the show. Yeah.
It was, yeah.
So cool.
He's very proud of that, and we're all very proud of him.
Yeah. He's one
Yeah,
of us
because
now.
John, the producer,
Favreau?
what's it? Yeah, Favreau. His daughter was a Thundercat fan, so that's how.
Nice. Yeah, that
got-
did seem
got
like
the call.
random, but like good. But like, how did they? Yeah. That's really
Yeah.
awesome. So awesome. Well, is there anything else, Dennis?
No, but you could address me as Ham Solo in the
Oh,
future, if you like.
Apologies, Ham Solo. Maybe that'll be more relevant when we get to Return of the Jedi. I'll try really
Right.
hard to remember that and make you laugh. Well, anyway, thank you so much for speaking with me again. It's always really fun.
It was a blast. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And listeners, you can comment below what I don't know, at any point. If there's anything also that we talked about that you didn't quite understand, actually leave a timestamp of where you started getting confused. And sometimes it helps me to know where my listeners are at music theory-wise, because, sometimes I do little segments on the show where I'm kind of breaking things down more. So, in case I do more like educational content to catch people up music theory-wise, that would be helpful. Of course, I have a Discord server that you can join by becoming a patron at any level. Link below in the description. You can find Star Wars Music Minute most social media platforms. And if you have a more in-depth question, you can always just email me at podcast@starwarsmusicminute.com. That's all we have for this week. Next week will be the final episode of the season, and it'll be a wrap-up episode that I'll be doing by myself. May the Force be with you, and talk to you next week on Star Wars Music Minute.